All right, hey guys. So back here really quick, you saw the first few slides and images up about what essential oils are, how we can use them, and how they can support us emotionally. It hits on the limbic system, which I mentioned earlier in my video leading up to class. The limbic system is pretty fascinating because, you know, it's linked to memories, and those memories that are linked to emotions. It's a very basic part of our anatomy. So really cool. And just really fascinating. It's a little sciencey, so I don't want to go way into it, but you know, a lot of essential oils can cross the blood-brain barrier just because of the size of their particles. So they can actually get in and throughout your body, and they just work really amazingly to help support emotional wellness. So I have a few notes here about what causes emotional patterns and what emotional patterns are. So first I'm going to recommend this book, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you might have seen it before. It's called Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils. It was written by Dr. Chiropractic Carolyn L. Mean, or Mine, I'm not really sure which way to pronounce it, but she has a whole like protocol for releasing emotional patterns, and she has like a whole chart and a couple of charts in here about like the physical areas of your body that may be affected related to an emotion, and how to utilize and what essential oils would match to that. It's really cool. So I have some notes because it's just a lot of in-depth information, and I want to make sure I kind of hit everything and can explain it well for you guys. So emotional patterns are fear-based survival responses. So our ego's purpose is to protect us from harm. So like a big computer, the ego and brain collects data from our experiences, and our brain takes everything we say seriously. So if you guys saw me post earlier this week on my personal page about intention and what was it? Energy follows thoughts, I think it was, about like speaking things into being or in attracting the type of response you're looking for with your words. So instead of saying like, oh, I can't, you know, I'll never get a raise at my job, you know, you're attracting that negativity then. So instead, speaking life into your goals and your visions. So I'm worthy, and I, you know, welcome the balance and the abundance with my position, or, you know, something like that. So the brain takes everything literally, and it stores it. So the protective responses are based on our past experiences, and future responses will be the same unless the program is changed and updated. So we need to update our programming, okay? And you understand that? Like computer technology, terminology, like you got to get an update to your operating system every once in a while, or it doesn't function properly, right? It's the same thing with our bodies and our brains. If we continue to repeat the same things that we've been told or taught our entire lives, then everything stays the same. Until we release those patterns and those thoughts that are holding us back and that are causing us problems, then, you know, nothing changes. So you have to start with your thinking, and emotional essential oils can help to support that in that way. So we're updating our ego's program so that we can experience our full potential. Does that make sense? So as children, we're imprinted with patterns based on what others tell us. People like our parents, guardians, teachers, our friends, you know, our classmates, whatever it is. So do you remember when we were talking about taking the words literally, where our brain takes the words literally? Our behaviors and responses are then shaped based on those experiences. So, you know, if you couldn't speak your, you know, express your emotions freely as a child because you always got in trouble when your parents didn't like your response, if they didn't like your feeling, then you know, you might have learned to keep those feelings inside, to suppress them, and to internalize them, to avoid being, you know, to avoid one, upsetting your parents, to avoid being punished, and those tendencies stay with us then, right? So if your tendency was to just shut down because you were getting in trouble, or you didn't want to upset and cause problems, and you just went quiet and didn't speak out and speak your truth because you didn't want to get in trouble, then you would likely continue to do this until you recognize this issue and recognize that this behavior is holding you back. So we have to update that programming, okay? So let's see, where am I here? most of us know the negative expression of an emotion, but few of us know the positive side, or how to access that positive side of the emotion, right? So we're going to look in a minute at this. It's the 8 basic emotions, and it's explained by a psychologist, and I don't remember the name. It's in the slide. You'll see it in a second. But, you know, that we have a balance, right? So on the opposite of one side of an emotion, you know, directly across from it is its opposite. And we have a series of kind of progressions from just kind of like slight annoyance to something that bothers us to like rage, right? So there's a range of that emotion, how we express it. So those emotions can cause problems for us emotionally, obviously, and mentally by creating these blocks that hold us back from progress, and also physically. We usually start to seek better ways of handling a situation when we have pain, whether that's emotional or physical, and that's often induced through some type of trauma, a physical or an emotional trauma, i.e., you know, you were spanked a lot because your parents didn't like your, you know, your opinions or whatever it was, right? That's kind of been my my example, but just for example, okay? And so emotional trauma is related to, I don't know, prolonged hospitalizations as a kid, you know, and that separation from your parent, or from being kind of bullied at school, you know, and then not being comfortable with yourself, trying to always be like a shapeshifter where you are trying to blend in with whatever crowd you're around so that you'll be accepted. Those are tendencies then that continue to cause problems for us because you never feel comfortable in your own skin and your own being. So those are tendencies then, those things that you do, then that lead to problems emotionally and physically later. So the trauma, whatever it is, emotional or physical, initiates an emotional pattern. Let me flip the page to the next one, sorry. Which causes a few things. So emotional energy is generated during the trauma as it enters the body, okay? That energy enters the body then. If it's not released, it's stored in an organ or a gland with the same vibrational energy. You guys are familiar with how the concept of like every part of our body, every part of our being, every living being has a vibration, and we're always trying to raise our vibration to be healthier and happier. So a negative trauma, the energy from that trauma is stored in your body in a gland or organ that matches that vibrational energy. For example, anger is stored in the liver. Then there is, the next step would be a memory of that trauma is also stored, right, in the limbic system of the brain. Remember I mentioned the limbic system earlier and how it's related to memories, scent, right? And that's, the limbic system is the seat of emotions. So the next part is that our minds create a belief and attach it to the emotional memory that's stored in the limbic system. So the belief might be like, I'm not worthy, you know, or I'm not enough because I wasn't accepted in school. People didn't like me the way I was. And so you have that feeling of unworthiness stored in that part of your body that matches that negative vibration. And you have that memory of that trauma of not being accepted and not being well liked. And then the belief that you're not enough. And then you get that emotional response is stored in your cellular memory, which is throughout the body, right? Cells throughout the body. And it becomes an automatic response then. And here you have an emotional pattern. That constant feeling of unworthiness when you meet new people, not really willing to put yourself out there, not wanting to connect on a deeper level because of the fear of rejection and not being enough. And we continue that cycle because we don't know how to break it. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next few slides. I'm about to pop up a couple more things about the 8 basic emotions. And let's see, I have it up here. 8 basic emotions and how we can identify those emotional patterns. So maybe you're doing something you don't even recognize as a pattern, a negative emotional pattern, but you're wondering like why you keep running into roadblocks, you know, and not being able to overcome those challenges and reach your goals. And so we're going to talk about that. So the next couple of slides will kind of introduce it, and then I'll hop back on and talk about identifying emotional patterns. All right, see you in a few, guys.